Welcome to the Tech Beyond Gender podcast. I'm your host, Meena Satish Kumar. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Lisa Cooley, a seasoned recruitment expert with over 22 years of experience, 13 of those dedicated to the tech sector. Lisa is the founder of BrightSpark Recruitment, a specialist IT, data, and digital recruitment company here in New Zealand. She's an industry leader known for her passion for giving back, whether it's through graduate readiness workshops, migrant job affairs, or advisory roles on IT boards. Recognized for her contributions, Lisa has won prestigious awards, including the 2019 NZ Seek Sarah Recruitment Consultant of the Year and 2023 RCSA Industry Leader of the Year. Let's dive into her insights on tech recruitment and diversity. Thanks for joining us today, Lisa.
Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Awesome. Now, before we dive into your impressive career in tech recruitment, I'd love to hear more about your personal journey. You spent a significant part of your life in UK before moving to New Zealand in 2009, right? Can you share with us what life was like for you back in the UK and what motivated you to move to New Zealand?
I can't remember. It's been so long since I've been there. I've been here nearly 16 years. It's very different. I was born in London, so from the UK originally. My parents actually moved. My mum grew up in New Zealand, so my parents moved me here the first time when I was 3 or 4. And then we went back to the UK when I was 9, I think. So did some primary school here in New Zealand. And then, I mean, look, the UK is great. It's a very different, it's certainly from a recruitment perspective, it's very different. There's obviously a lot more people. I've just been back we've been back for a couple of weeks recently. I think the older I get, the more I appreciate living in a smaller country. It's pretty hectic there. The weather's obviously not the best most of the time. But yeah, I mean, it's still where I'm from and I still love it and still got family there. But we moved to New Zealand. Well, my parents moved back to New Zealand in 2000 and I stayed in London, which is where I started my recruitment career. And then I moved here in 2009. It was sort of right in the thick of the GFC. So it wasn't the greatest time to be working in recruitment or many things back then in London. It was pretty depressing. And I got sick of the weather and decided it was time to come and be home with the family. So probably, the best move I've made. I've had a New Zealand passport since I was 7. So was an easy decision to come back and be with mum and dad and my little brother. And I've still got siblings in the UK, so obviously I miss them. But that's kind of, I guess, where that journey was and why I moved back here. And and I sort of, I guess, never looked back. I've only been back to the UK 4 times in nearly 16 years. So it's a long way. I'd rather meet people sort of in the middle if I can. But yeah, it's still, New Zealand's definitely home now. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So why recruitment? So you've been in recruitment industry for many years now.
Yeah, I think it's coming up 23 years or thereabouts. Might even be more. Like most people, I fell into recruitment. I don't think there's many people that sort of, I mean, I'm sure there is people that go, yeah, I want to work in recruitment, but I think the vast majority of us fall into it. For me, I went into a sort of local recruitment agency looking for temp work. I'd been in hospitality up until that point, till my very early 20s. My parents were both in hospitality, so it's kind of where I grew up. I'd been working for them since a teenager. I kind of just wanted my weekends back and a bit more of a career. So I went in to find some temp work and they sort of said, oh, have you thought about doing recruitment? And I was like, well, I don't even know what it is, but I'll give it a go, and had zero idea. And sort of going back so long that we still would scan paper for adverts to chase, and people still used to send their CVs in the post or by fax and like little Rolodex of temps and things. So very, very different to kind of, now not everyone sort of had, even like 20 odd years ago, not everyone had emails still, or dial-up was pretty slow, so people used to just walk in looking for work. So yeah, I guess I was just really lucky that I ended up being pretty good at it, and quickly sort of got a role in London, and that's sort of where it all started. 7, 8 years in London before I moved here.
So what was it in technology recruitment?
No, in the UK, I was doing business support initially.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people sort of get into, I think, business support straight away. And it was fun, and I understood it. I understood what people did, and yeah, it was great. But I think when I was here and got the opportunity to move into tech, it was very much, you knew it was going to be really fast paced, and I guess it was really outside my comfort zone. So yeah, I did a very short stint doing tech in the UK before I came here, like very short, because that's I say it was GFC and it was just a bit of a nightmare. So when I moved here, I went back into business support because it was easy, briefly, and then ended up a good friend of mine who I'd worked with in London got suggested moving into tech at the company he was at, and the rest was history.
Nice. Now, can you share the journey of launching BrightSpark in
Yeah.
2020 and what gaps did you see in the market at that?
Um, yeah, it's been a whirlwind, sort of nearly 5 years for sure. It took a long time to go from the idea of BrightSpark, although it didn't have a name then, to actually launching the business, because it's really outside of your comfort zone to go from working for somewhere for a long time and being one of the top performers there to actually running your own business. Um, I sort of ended up meeting randomly with an ex-boss of mine in New Zealand who lived from London, and another colleague from London who at the time was they had a New Zealand office, Cobalt Recruitment, so I'd worked with them in London, and my old boss was over here visiting the Auckland office, and we ended up catching up, and he said, "Oh, have you thought about running your own business?" And he invests in a lot of recruitment companies for people that's worked with him. And yeah, I think those conversations went on for about a year or so to try and convince that it was a good idea. And yeah, it was, I mean, for me, what really appealed was, and obviously, wouldn't have been in the company I was for so long if it wasn't great, but it just really appealed to kind of strip back recruitment to very much just being about the people. And when you've got boards and things like that, it becomes very much, okay, this is the board, that's it. Don't get me wrong, businesses need to make money, they need to, but for me it was like, well, if you strip it back to just being really about the people and looking after people, then, and you treat them well, business success will follow. And being able to make changes without sort of going, okay, I think we could do this better, so I'd have to ask my manager, who'd have to ask their manager, who'd have to go to the board and say, let's just do it. This is so much better for our clients or our job seekers if we can just make this change. And it became quite frustrating not being able to do that quickly, and just wanted to build a team of super passionate people that cared about the industry and about our clients and job seekers as much as I did. So we finally took the plunge in February 2020, and of course 6 weeks later, everything kind of shut down, and it was our first lockdown. So that was scary. Timing, brilliant. Pretty scary, as you can imagine. I just employed my first person, Claire, who's still with me now, and as one of my managers. And yeah, it was just like, am I going to lose everything? You've taken this huge risk starting a business, and yes, I had great business partners and great backing, but you're like, what are we going to do? So we dug deep, and we met, we actually managed to, turn a profit in that first year, despite all of that, which was awesome. And by the end of that year, I think there was 5 or 6 of us. So kind of went sort of 0 to 100 once everything sort of once the lockdowns, it became sort of the new normal. So yeah, that was the journey, and yeah, we've never looked back really.
So how was the industry like during the lockdown? I'm surprised that you managed to actually recruit more people during that time in the
Well, I think those first few months were just like nothing was happening, right? Like it was that sort of panic. No one had gone through this before. It was just no one knew what to expect. So obviously a lot of companies were getting rid of a lot of people, just complete panic. And so internal recruiters were obviously trying to justify their roles, and obviously there was very few roles being recruited, so no one really needed an agency at that point. There was a few, I mean, we worked at the time, and we still do a lot now in that startup space. And luckily there was, there were quite a few companies that had big funding rounds not long before COVID happened. And so they still needed to recruit people. And look, we did quite a lot of pro bono stuff in that time, because we know, people didn't want to, pay an agency, because it was just that sort of time. They're like, well, there's all these people looking. So we would end up, introducing really great candidates to businesses for free, because we wanted those candidates to have really good roles, or some of them were on visas. So if they lost their jobs, they were going to have to leave the country, or they couldn't leave the country. So it was just a nightmare situation. It was just absolute madness. I mean, I look back at it now and it blows my mind what it was like. But I think once things calmed down, and after that first main lockdown, companies realized, okay, actually things are picking up, and now we don't have enough staff, and suddenly it was just absolutely insanely busy. And the future lockdowns, it's like, well, we're now at a point where we can work remotely, so we can still hire, and it just became that new normal, as I say. And I hate that phrase, but it was. So yeah, and we were just suddenly so busy we had to hire more people. And it was crazy how it went from sort of zero to, like I say, about 1 million at that point. So yeah, crazy times. I think it took about a couple of years before anyone sort of came up for breath. And yeah, it was just mad. But it makes a sort of stronger business person and stronger recruiter, going through all these different sort of cycles and times. And now we're in a sort of quieter period again. And yeah, it's been a mad 5 years from that sense. It's just so much change all the time.
I bet. So how has the recruitment landscape changed since you started working in tech recruitment?
Yeah. I guess it'd be easier to say what hasn't changed. There's just so much. For me in tech recruitment, what I really enjoy is the fact that there's always something new happening. There's always new roles. Like there's roles that I was recruiting 13 years ago that don't exist anymore. There's technology that people don't use, and there's always these new technologies, and obviously you have to adapt and learn all the time. What I love as well is there is so much more diversity, I find, now in New Zealand than there was when I first moved back. We place people from all over the world all the time, and that's very, it's great. It's great for Auckland. It's great for the rest of the country. And yeah, it's just, like I say, that diversity. We place people from South America, from Asia, from you name it, just anywhere and everywhere. Eastern Europe, Western Europe. It's awesome. So I'm loving how diverse, how much more diverse that's become. There's definitely, although we've got such a long way to go, there is definitely more women and gender diverse people now in technology. As I say, it's a huge way to go. I'm seeing a lot more fantastic senior leaders in the tech space now, female. Again, not enough, but there's some awesome individuals that are really, really, waving the flag for gender diverse and females. I just think that's fantastic. There's obviously so much new technology in terms of tools that we use as well. But yeah, it's an ever evolving. And I think that's why we love tech, because I think if I was just doing an industry that didn't change, it'd be pretty boring, because my brain needs constant change and constant stimulation, and tech definitely provides that.
Great. So now, how does BrightSpark Recruitment support gender diversity in tech?
Look, we're a predominantly female and female-led business. There's only 2 males in our business, bless them. They're a little bit outnumbered, but I think they love it. So for us, it's just something that we are super passionate about. And there's a number of ways that we try and support that. It can be as simple as, all of the team have had training in advert writing that appeals more to females, say. So, or it's a well-known fact that often women will apply to roles if they know they tick most of the boxes, right? Whereas men are just like, yeah, I've got half of that. Let's go for it. So they've all been trained in how to, to make those job adverts appealing. to people of all genders, and more likely that women will apply. We are very, very, we always, our policy is to always, where possible, send as many female to male CVs. So if we can, it'll be 50-50. Often it's more females. And then unfortunately there's certain, there's certain roles that there just aren't enough to be able to do that. But our policy, wherever we can, is to always send, an equal amount of CVs from both sides. We also support organisations like Tech Women. We'll often put socials out about things like the shadow tech and mentoring and things like that. We go to a lot of events as well. So, and I really want to work out ways that we can get really down to sort of grassroots and get into more schools. I think the biggest thing is we need to get people into tech from a very young age. And I mean, look, we've had months this year and previous years where I would say 3/4 of the people we've placed into roles in that month have been female, which is amazing. That's, we're really proud of that. So yeah, just in whatever ways we really can. I mean, I love a story from last year. We actually placed a developer, which is great because there's nowhere near enough females in the software space. We actually placed her. She was, I think she was a few months, 4 or 5 months pregnant at the time when we placed her into the role. And we were a big advocate for her into that business, that, she was the right person. And we actually really worked hard and kudos to this business. They were amazing. And they are one of those that really put their money where their mouth is when it comes to supporting diversity. And they actually ended up, even though she just wouldn't have qualified for maternity, and they actually gave her their full maternity benefits and topped up her salary, which even though she hadn't been there the time that, was their policy, which I just thought was absolutely amazing. So that was a really feel good, like we, get you in there. So that was awesome. So anything we can do around that, we're definitely big advocates of.
Great. So I really like how your staff are all trained for writing job descriptions which are more gender neutral.
Yeah.
Now, have there been any trainings with regards to interviewing as well? I feel that the way you would interview men, at the moment, I think the standard is the same, right? The interview process is very similar. But research also suggests that, like how you mentioned, when it comes to job ads, like women would prefer that they have a tick with every requirement. If they meet the requirement, they apply, otherwise they don't. So similarly, with regards to the interview processes, the way a woman would handle the interview process could be different. But at the moment, there is no real different recruitment process. What are your thoughts on that?
It's a hard one. I mean, the team have a lot of training in the recruitment process and interviewing and so on. And I think naturally, because they are all really experienced recruiters, they've done a lot that they naturally are able to kind of do and sort of, I guess, understand while they're talking to people what potentially they need to do in terms of their style and understanding. And I think being predominantly, as I say, females ourselves, we know how we would want to, what might be different. But I think that is something that probably does still, there is a gap in the market for that. For us, as I say, it's just a natural thing that we will advocate for that flexibility potentially that people need, or will often, if we're speaking to someone who's like, I don't know if I can go for that job because I don't necessarily tick all it, it's part of our coaching and what we do, and knowing our clients really well. We really work with businesses that have the same values as we do, so it's able to match those people that need the flexibility with the right places. But I definitely think there is a gap in the market for that, and I think maybe in all sectors really. But it's something that we're just very conscious of naturally, I think. And sort of being, it might be as simple as that you can interview at certain times of the day makes it easier, or those people might not be able to come in person. So we're just really, I think, same with neurodivergent candidates, there's just always going to be, we're just very conscious of how we can make that process easy. as well. So yeah, I just think it's something, like I say, that we would naturally do. But yeah, I think there could definitely be a gap for more training in that space as well.
Yeah, and also you mentioned like having exposure at schools would be great
Yeah,
for kids to
yeah,
get into technology.
yeah,
But say if you're doing a great job with having STEM education in schools
yeah.
and in universities, and then say we are
Mm,
freeing them up through grad recruitment, we're getting them into the
mm,
organizations.
yeah,
Do you think the organizations are ready at the moment, as is, to nurture those female candidates and
yeah.
help them grow and flourish within
Mm.
the tech space?
Some are. There's a lot that aren't. I talk to a lot of awesome businesses and work with some fantastic organizations that do that so well. And there's businesses that take part in Shadow Tech, say, and they have school age girls come in and spend the day, but there are a lot that definitely are not set up or put that into the too hard basket. And look, it's not, there are businesses that it may not work for, just in terms of, they might be too small, or they might not have enough diversity to, already, and they've got to kind of, let's get more females into the business or more gender diverse individuals into the business so that we can do that, right? It's going to be pretty hard to send young females into a business if it's just like 50s to 60-year-old males. It's like, how about them just not going to understand? And so there's also, unfortunately, a lot of businesses that will bemoan that there isn't enough diversity in tech, but then won't actually put their hands up to help, and that's quite frustrating. But look, it's all a work in progress. As I say, there are some places that are doing it fantastically, and when I look at how much has changed and how much better it is now to 13 years ago, I really hope, or 15 years ago, I really hope that it's going to be even more so in the future. And I think we've just got to keep being advocates for that, really. And as more people come into the workforce that are, diverse, then that can only increase that understanding, and hopefully those people will advocate for that when they're in those businesses.
So, what strategies do you think organizations can take proactively from their end to have more diverse workforce in tech?
I think it's having the right people in the organization that really want to do that and want to understand. And really, again, like, it's the worst thing that businesses, like, often, we find is that they want to be more diverse, or they want to appear that they're more diverse, but it's often just a box ticking exercise. And it's very obvious when someone goes into an organization that if they realize they are, and so it's really, if you're going to do it properly, right? That's the real thing. And it's like, have specialists come in, or people that really understand, that are going to put that DEI policy in place. It's just like, it's one, you can't just say you do it, you've actually got to do it. And it's like, okay, talk to the females or the gender diverse individuals in your business. What do you want? I think that's the thing, is they don't always ask the relevant people. It's like, what can we do better? And maybe have a group of people that are there to say, this is what we should be doing. Instead of just going, okay, this is what we've told we should do. It's like, actually talk to those people, and what can we do better, and how can we make this environment better for you and more supportive for you. And I think that's the thing, they don't always ask the right people. It's just like, we have to be diverse, let's tick that, and so, but it is getting better. But yeah, I think it's, as I say, if you're going to do it, you need to put those you need to put it into practice, right? If you're going to say, well, we need more, females, well, then what are you going to do once they're there? Are you going to have more flexibility? Are you going to, there's a lot online at the moment about menopause and making that, like, how do we support older females in that? I love the fact, especially someone in them, in coming into their mid-40s, that's being spoken about, because there's a time when people are going to need more support. And it just was something that was just never mentioned, and now it's out there, and there's so much. I think things like that are great. we're definitely heading in the right direction, but with a lot more to do. But I love that companies are starting to think about things like that.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with another D&I specialist
Yeah.
last week, and she was sharing how there is a lot of resistance, as how you mentioned. There is
Mm.
this tick box exercise
Yeah.
that they have done something for a D&I initiative that could be for getting a working group
Yeah.
created
Yeah.
or just having a meeting, and that's it. But besides that, no one really wants to do the work,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And why do you think there is this resistance to act? Why do you think we were not actually putting in that extra effort?
Yeah. I think it's just quite often people can be resistant to change. Change is scary. And
Mm,
also it is a lot of hard work, like to get
mm,
to and I think as well, the more we get more awesome female leaders in businesses, then obviously
mm,
that can only help, or hopefully. But I think it's just that change is hard.
mm,
And also, I think especially a lot at the moment because with the way the economy has been, and it's been for a lot of companies the last couple of years have been a real struggle. So adding something else on top of all of that can just be
mm.
sometimes too much. But the sad thing is, if you actually spent that time and that effort, you would have such a happier workforce, a more diverse workforce. But I think it's just people put it in that, yeah, it's just hard. If we tick the box, it's easy. But
Mm.
yeah, I'd say many reasons, but that's kind of what I would potentially think is, it's just, yeah, resistance to change is so normal, unfortunately, for human beings. But just, yeah, it's such a big job. And people just like, well, until they're really forced to do it. But by then it's probably too late, right? So they'll get left behind.
And what you mentioned about menopause is right, but
Yeah.
the organizations are taking proactive steps to just
Yeah.
talk about it. But I often also think that, okay, just talking about it, like some of these workshops that they conduct is not, it's just like anyone who has time during that particular slot will attend those workshops.
Yeah.
And if you have other work priorities or work meetings, you
Mm.
sort of prioritize that over a
Mm.
menopause workshops, for
Yeah.
instance.
Yeah.
And there is a bit of stigma, I feel, that is associated with women going through menopause.
Mm. Totally.
So if do you think the woman would be comfortable to actually uh, talk to their manager or to their team, like
Mm.
someone in their mid-40s, maybe in a senior
Mm.
role, having people reporting to them, or probably just having
Mm.
a very responsible technical role? Do
Mm.
you think they'll be comfortable enough to actually say that, hey, I am going through a tough time right at this
Mm.
point in time. I'm going through menopause.
Mm.
Probably I need some space to get things sorted. Like, do you think we have provided that sort of environment in our industry for women to be comfortable enough to talk about it?
I think it's probably not enough. There's definitely, I know some organisations that are incredibly open that absolutely. I mean, it's two things. You've got to be comfortable in the environment, but you've also got to be the kind of person that's comfortable. And some people just naturally will never be comfortable talking about something like that, which is sad because it's just so normal. And all women are going to go through that at some point. Albeit at varying, levels of how they're affected, but yeah, I think there's a lot of environments where potentially, yeah, you'd be happy to say to your team, probably shouldn't talk to me today, or I'm probably going to stay at home, or I'm like, but yeah, I think it's such a new thing for people to really start talking about and being open in the workplace that it's sort of hard to know at the moment.
Mm.
But the fact that we're even talking about it is fantastic.
Mm.
The fact that it's getting out there, but I think it will depend on and how open they are. So I would love, I mean, we're all really open about it in our office in terms of, well, pretty much anything. We can talk about anything, but we're a small, close, as I say, predominantly female team. I think if you were the only female in a team of, younger males or older males, probably be less inclined to have that talk. So I think, yeah, it's just going to be, the more we bring it out there, the more more it's out in the open in general. I think that can only be a good thing.
Yeah. I do agree that there's probably more work that needs to be done because I
Definitely.
feel being a woman within a tech space in a technical role on its own can be challenging enough.
Yes.
And you add another layer of complexity to it. We don't want to be judged or
Yeah.
seen as someone who is maybe classified as being
Mm.
lazy or she
Yeah.
just needs more time off and stuff.
Mm.
So it's just thinking about the repercussions of what
Yeah.
that could
Yeah.
possibly mean. And to add to it, if you're a woman of color, it's just going to add even more complexity, I feel, right?
Yeah. And it's just that, oh my gosh, if I say something, am I going to be seen as being difficult,
Mm.
right? Is it just some, and we've already got so many things that we deal with that men don't. And having maternity leave. So I mean, I know plenty of males take paternity leave, but just going to appointments when pregnant and all these things, it's just like, is this just one more thing that they're going to see as being me being difficult? But then of course that then brings more probably stress about that, so that can cause problems with mental health because you've already got these physical
Mm.
symptoms, and now suddenly you're stressing yourself out so much worrying about being seen as a problem that then that causes mental like anguish. So it's just there's just so many layers to it, that yeah, there's just it's so much to unpick and for us and deal with, I think.
Yeah. So you also work with new migrants who are
Yes.
keen to get into the tech job market.
Yep.
What are the challenges you think that they are currently facing?
There's quite it really is. Individually, a lot of them will face different issues, and I love our migrant workshops and helping. And the majority of the people we deal with have got really awesome experience before they moved to New Zealand in the tech space. And I think we realised there was a gap. I used to work with organisations that basically put these workshops on for new migrants, and we decided to bring that in house because they, as far as I know, stopped doing that, and so we decided to bring them in house and hold them in the BrightSpark offices. And I realized that there's a lot of people that were getting either visas to come over and already in search of work, or they were moving over here to find work, and then there was just no support when they got here, and so it's how do you know what's different when you arrive in terms of a CV is different here, that the acceptable New Zealand format is an interviewing style different, like it's a lot more casual here generally. If you've come from somewhere where there's 3,000 of you in the IT team, and there might be 20 of you, your roles might be a lot broader here, and things just so much that there's just no support to kind of go, okay, this is what's the norm here, or this is what expectations are. And that's why we get so many people are like, why can't I get work? Like, what's things like helping them with cover letters and so on. And I think one of the biggest challenges as well is because we're such a small country, so much is done through networking. So often roles, someone will just shoulder tap someone they know, or do you heard about this role? And so if you come over with zero networks, that's really that's hard. So we will often say to them, get out there to meetups, get out and meet and just as well, like that confidence of being able to converse in a language that might not be your first language. And so often people will move over and they'll have family, or they'll have people, they'll sort of tend to stay within their groups of people that maybe are from the same place that they are. And I'm like, well, you need to get out there and meet people to practice your business English, or just for that confidence of conversing, in a language that's not your first. And so really it's just helping them with all of those different things and all of those challenges. And so many people who come to our workshops have found work, and they're just, it's so good to see just the tiniest little things that can make such a difference. You're helping them with their interview preparation and like role plays, and just being there to answer questions that no one else has been there to help, just simple things. So yeah, it's been awesome. It's been really, really fantastic doing that. It was really hard for a couple of years when we couldn't get anyone into the country, not being able to do it. And we do it with graduates as well. We do employee readiness workshops with grads at various different tertiary organisations. Being able to give back, and just there's not that resource out there for them. So it's awesome to be able to do that.
Have you noticed more women as well as migrants in tech sector, or is it predominantly men?
Our workshops actually like really tend to be quite evenly split, which is fantastic. We've had some amazing, I mean, awesome stories of women that we've had come through. I remember one person that we helped that had been in a country where very much segregated, men and women weren't allowed to work in the same offices and things like that. And so that was a big, that's a big culture shock. And that was also the reason why they wanted to leave. They wanted to be in a much more sort of progressive, forward-thinking country. But yeah, like being able to just go, okay, this is just that. Often they already know, but they just want someone to, yeah, you're right. That is what you should be doing here. It's just someone to ask, someone to lean on, and just be able to go, yep, I am doing the right thing. So yeah, it's quite. I love how that does tend to be quite an even split, but often the women will be looking for quite different roles to the men. There's still not enough in some of the really technical roles. So yeah, it's really interesting in that sense.
Yeah. So you have worked with graduates as well in the past, right? So
Yeah.
recently I had a conversation with someone who mentioned that like even with graduates, you do see a drop off as they progress up in their career ladder. They tend to move on to other roles, other non-technical roles within the tech sector. Is this something that you have observed as well?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because often when we're speaking to the graduates, often they'll start off doing fairly technical courses and so on, and then might go, you might end up, they'll start, say, everyone starts off maybe going into, say, a help desk or something along those lines. And often I find that there's not many females that continue down a very sort of technical path. Often what will happen is they'll move more into sort of like a lot of project service, although there's a lot of female testers. I think we just like to make sure things are working, which is great. But very few female sort of cloud engineers or traditional systems engineers. Lots of females in sort of the project management and BA space. And so yeah, it's nowhere near enough in the software development space still. So it'd be great to sort of see a more more even spread in those areas as well. But yeah, it definitely, I mean, there's definitely is a drop off basically, which is sad.
Last year, I remember talking to a recent graduate in tech, and she mentioned to me how in a final year of university, when they had a tech project to do, the females in this class were predominantly been given the admin task, whereas the boys were the ones who were doing the real technical things for the job. Yeah.
Wow, that's yeah, way to stereotype. Oh, that's a shock.
Yeah, so I do feel that certain stereotypes are going to take for long before we could see any change.
I'd be creating a scene in that project. I think if that was me to make sure that I was given the technical stuff to do. Yeah.
Cool. What skills or attributes do you believe tech graduates should focus on to stand out in today's competitive market?
I think because everyone's sort of starting on an even playing field when you sort of come out of studies, I think really focusing on the soft skills, because that's such a critical thing in the New Zealand workplace. So really, that confidence, being able to sell yourself, being, you want to come across as super hardworking and wanting to kind of help be part, like a real team player. And I think you can teach anyone the technical side if they've got the capabilities, but that soft skills side and getting out there and sort of networking and those sorts of things, I think they really competitive at that level to find work. So I think it's that getting out there, putting yourself out there and meeting people is really critical. But also working on your personal projects, right? So when you don't have a lot of work experience, anything you do, you can do at home, or any sort of additional sort of micro qualifications, anything like that just shows you're really passionate about the industry and setting you apart from those that aren't doing that, because it is tough to break into. So I think focusing on sort of that upskilling and doing stuff in your spare time, saying, hey, here's this awesome project, and being able to show that. If you're a developer, creating cool stuff and being able to show a potential employer, that is going to make a real difference. So that and the soft skills piece is what we always get them to focus on.
Yeah, now going back to the diversity conversation that we were having, I work in tech, and I often feel that very few women as we progress further up in technical roles. But even with gender diverse professionals, you don't really see many of them. Has this been your observation as well?
100%. Definitely we've placed some awesome gender diverse individuals. We've had quite a few people we've had as clients that have transitioned, in the time we've known them, which is great. But yeah, it is definitely a sector that seems to be really, really lacking in that sort of diversity. So I would love to, I'd love to see that change. I don't know how we do that. I think what we can do is support people to be, their whole selves. But I do think it's, tech is not as bad as some industries, but it's definitely, I think, got a long way to go for people to feel, I don't know really how to sort of answer why that is, but it's very much, my observation.
Yeah. While I was talking to someone yesterday, she mentioned to me, she's a D&I professional, and she mentioned to me how difficult it can be for, especially trans women. In tech, it becomes even more challenging because they have, especially those who transition, say, after their mid-30s or 40s, they've had a life of enjoying male privilege for a bit. And now suddenly as they transition, they are seen less than a cis woman, and they get less privileges than a cis woman.
Yeah.
So it just becomes way too difficult for them to actually navigate an industry which is already very stereotyped.
Yeah. It's just another layer of challenge, right? And you've got to be an incredibly strong person to be able to navigate that. And I just feel that there's so much more work that needs to be done as an industry. So hopefully that will, time will change that.
Are there any specific areas in the tech industry where talent is in high demand and difficult to find, especially concerning women and gender diverse individuals?
It's always changing. Like there'll be, I always find that you'll go, okay, this is really in demand. We had this big run of sort of, security roles for a while when obviously COVID happened and everything was sort of remote and very hard to find women in the security space. And then you'll get another run of we'll suddenly everyone wants sort of cloud engineers. And so again, that's an area that it's really hard to find women. But it's constantly changing. I think the areas where we see the most female representation is in that sort of project services space, a lot in the sort of creative world, like the digital side of like product roles and UI UX type roles, much less in that sort of software development side of things. So less, and even more, like I would say, particularly in say the Java space is like very underrepresented. Lots of women are saying testing, which is great. As I say, I think that's because we like to make sure things work properly. But yeah, it's a really sort of always changing what's in demand. But yeah, I'd say those really technical, the particularly sort of engineering technical roles is where we're just definitely seeing a real underrepresentation of females.
And you have received some prestigious awards for your work in recruitment. What does this recognition mean to you, and how has it influenced your approach to recruitment and industry engagement?
Look, recognition is amazing, right? Like everyone wants to be recognized for the work they do. I don't do what I do for that or awards, but it's, it's nice if you get them. I think it's probably the other way around. Like the recognition and the awards have come from, what we do, rather than that influencing, getting the awards doesn't influence how I work. It's the other way. And look, just naturally, I'm someone that just really likes to give back to both the tech sector and my industry. And I generally, just because I'm super passionate about people and the industry, I think when you do get recognized, it's like, and people sort of know who you are, it's even more important to continue to do that and sort of lead the way, because if we can influence other people to do the right thing and treat people well and raise the standards of what we do, then that's a really blessed place to be. It just keeps us doing the right thing when you're recognized for it. Not that I wouldn't anyway, but because that's very much my values. But yeah, it is awesome. It puts us in a place, puts someone like myself in a place where we can really influence the industry, as I say, and raise the standards.
Great. More responsibility then comes with recognition.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, do you want to talk to us more about your employment readiness workshop that you have for graduates?
Yeah. So we work with a few different tertiary organisations. Main one we're working with at the moment is Unitec, but we've worked with a number of them. It's basically going in to talk to the students that are due to graduate that year, and giving them an overview of the tech sector and what the trends are at the moment, and really, I guess, setting the expectation that it can be tough to break into, but giving them the tools that will give them the best chance to find the right role. So it could be everything from like how to prepare for interviews, how to write their CVs, how to write a really good cover letter. As simple things like making sure you leave plenty of time to get to interviews, and just really, really simple stuff, down to some more sort of technical bits. But really, I guess, just again being that resource that they might not have from specifically a tech, with a tech lean, because often they'll have career people at their university or the organisation, but they won't be tech specific. So we're able to give them that real industry specific knowledge and help, and then just helping them again with these are some good events to go to, get out there and network. It's really interesting how it tends to always be the top students that attend, because they're not mandatory. I mean, I presume they're not, because you don't always get everyone come from that year. But yeah, it's interesting. And when I do talk to the person that organises them, they're like, yeah, it's always the top achieving students that make the effort to come. So yeah, we love those. And I love following their sort of journey after that as well. It's as recruiters, we don't often get graduate roles. It's quite rare, because businesses are able to find people quite easily in that space. So for us, it's more helping them break into that industry, because they're going to be our sort of future leaders and so on, hopefully. But yeah, graduates are great.
Great.
Yeah.
I know that you're quite involved and with the meetups and workshops that you're organizing and stuff. So why do you think it's important for recruiters like yourself to engage with the community? What impact does this have on the industry?
I think we just hold so much knowledge from what we do day in, day out. So we're meeting so many people that are looking for work. We're meeting so many people within organizations. It's so important for us to impart that knowledge to people. It's like, yeah, I almost feel like it's our duty to do that. And it just, again, if it helps us raise the standards of both our industry and the tech sector as well, then I just think that's so important. And again, I think my team and myself, we're so passionate about helping people. That's just part of it and part of what we do. It's important for us to give back that, and I think that knowledge, it'd be so wasted if we don't share it. So yeah, that's like, I think that for me is the really critical part of what we do, is outside of just the day-to-day recruitment, is sharing that knowledge that we're lucky enough to have.
And what advice would you give to women and gender diverse professionals considering a career in tech?
Go for it, obviously. Yeah, it's not going to be without its challenges. I mean, hopefully those challenges will become less, over time. But just back yourself that you can do it. But do your research as well. Like just work, find out which companies are doing the do rather than just saying they support people, because it's hard enough sometimes to get into what's traditionally been a male-dominated industry. If you sort of go into the wrong place, and it could put you off for life, and then that's we're going to lose so many awesome gender diverse and females that could be just superb. And you look at how much better businesses are for that diversity, what women and gender diverse individuals can bring to the table. So just back yourself, go for it, but make sure it's the right place, because I'd hate people to get such an awful experience that they gave up before it even started.
Yeah. So what is the industry trend looking like now?
I mean, in terms of sort of tech and things, I mean,
Yeah.
AI obviously is the big buzzwords and stuff at the moment. It's interesting because I think from a recruitment perspective, it's like, there's always been someone going, you're going to get replaced by AI, you're going to get replaced by this. But the fact is you can't replace that human contact and that person to person contact that you get from recruitment. I think I've struggled to find a machine that could do what we do in that sense. So I'm really interested to kind of see where all this AI stuff goes, whether it's going to sort of how it evolves over time. I think that's really the big thing at the moment. That's probably the biggest trend that people were talking about. There's a lot of AI consultancies popping up and so on. And it's because it covers every sector, right? Every industry. It's really interesting how often we'll see CVs and cover letters and posts online that are so clearly, written by ChatGPT or what have you. And I think that the biggest risk there is everyone ending up sounding the same, or very robotic. I think it's important to find that balance between, human and machine. You can't just get it to do everything for you. It can make your life easier and that, but I think, it's important that we sort of make sure we keep that balance.
I've never heard of the AI consultants, recruitment consultants.
I think there's been all these trends in recruitment for the last 20 odd years that we're going to get replaced by this or replaced by that, I think it's more, in a lot of larger countries, I know that a lot of screening's just done, by machines, before it even gets to a human seeing CVs and so on, or this is going to get automated, so you're not going to need to, we won't need you anymore and things like that. So it's definitely, it's interesting. Something's going to be replacing recruiters, like I say, since I've been doing recruitment, which is, feels like forever. So I'm not too worried about that at this stage. I think, the human element is always going to be critical in what we do. Humans want to deal with humans. So, yeah.
So what changes do you foresee in tech recruitment sector in the next 5 to 10 years?
Oof, I really don't know. It's so hard because it surprises me constantly, the changes. I guess, so going back to the AI, so I think there is going to be some really cool stuff that will make our lives a lot easier. But as I say, it's got to be that balance, right? So, and if it allows the client and candidate experience to be better, if we are able to automate a lot of things that means people do get contacted at the right time, people are got back to things, that's awesome. There's always going to be some cool tools, but as I say, it's that balance, right? But other than that, you just never know. It's just so fast paced. And going back to what I said right at the beginning, there's technologies, things that we're recruiting now that didn't exist even 5 years ago. So it's just so hard to know. But that's what I love. That's what keeps us on our toes. I think we will continue to see more diversity in tech. I think it will only get better. As I say, as the sort of the next generation is coming through, that's really important to them. I want to see more awesome female leaders. I'd love to see more gender diverse individuals, but I think there's just so much change that needs to happen in the industry for that. But fingers crossed, that's what we'll see in the next 5 to 10 years, or hopefully less time would be nice.
Yeah. Thank you, Lisa, for your time. Really appreciate
You're
your time.
welcome.
And I just love your passion for
Thank
gender
you.
diversity. And I've had several conversations with you in the past. And you have this charm of lifting up anyone's spirits.
Oh, thank
That's a real
you.
gift that you have. And thank you so much for making time today.
Thank you for having me. It's been really awesome chatting.
Great. Any final thoughts, messages for our listeners?
I talk a lot. No, look, just as I say, I think as an industry, I just want everyone to kind of get behind, diversity and just really behind every CV, behind every, job applicant is a human being. And every person you've got, when a company employs someone, they've got a duty to look after that person and treat them right. And I hope that when that, as that continues to happen, that will get more people into the industry, that are, more diversity. So fingers crossed. I still want to be around in the next sort of 10 years doing this talking. Someone's asked me what's changed, and that's what I want to say in those years.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you.
My
Thanks for your
pleasure.
time.
Thank you.